In the turbulent years following the Cold War, one man's decision almost reignited the flames of global conflict. Behind closed doors, away from the public eye, and even much of his own administration, the President of the United States authorized a series of covert military maneuvers that brought the world within minutes of annihilation. These actions, buried deep in classified files for decades, were never meant to see the light of day. But as declassified documents began to surface, historians realized that humanity had unknowingly stood at the edge of World War III, not in open battlefields, but in the shadows of political deception and military ambition. It began in the early 1980s, when tensions between the US and the Soviet Union had started to ease, or so the world believed. The president, a man celebrated for his charm and diplomacy, carried a private fear. That peace was only an illusion. Convinced that the Soviets were secretly developing a first strike capability, he authorized Operation Silent Dawn, a contingency plan involving preemptive strikes under the guise of military exercises. Few in the Pentagon knew the full scope, and even fewer dared to question it. It was a decision that could have reshaped the planet's history overnight. Operation Silent Dawn was unlike any other. It wasn't a war plan on paper. It was a living mechanism designed to activate through coded signals and false drills. The president, distrustful of his own intelligence agencies, created a private advisory circle composed of loyalists and ex-military officers. They bypassed Congress and even key members of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Fighter squadrons were repositioned. Submarines carrying nuclear warheads began routine patrols dangerously close to Soviet waters. And yet, the American people slept peacefully, unaware that one miscommunication could have triggered an unstoppable chain reaction. The danger became real in March 1983. A misinterpreted radar signal over the Arctic Circle indicated that a Soviet missile launch might be underway. The president, already on edge from weeks of secret intelligence briefings, was awakened in the middle of the night. For 13 minutes, the United States prepared for a retaliatory strike. Nuclear codes were verified, bomber pilots were scrambled, and naval commanders awaited final confirmation. But then, just as the countdown reached its critical point, NORAD analysts discovered the truth. It was a false alarm caused by a malfunctioning satellite sensor. The president called it off, but the world never knew how close it came. In the aftermath of that terrifying night, the president ordered tighter secrecy. Instead of dismantling Operation Silent Dawn, he expanded it. He believed that the false alarm was proof of vulnerability, that the US could be caught off guard if the Soviets ever launched a real attack. Behind the public smiles and televised peace talks, he continued his covert buildup. Documents later revealed he authorized cyber operations, proxy missions, and covert funding of intelligence groups across Eastern Europe, all without congressional oversight. Every move deepened the deception and inched the world closer to catastrophe. By late 1984, whispers began to circulate inside the Pentagon. Junior officers questioned strange flight patterns, unmarked communication frequencies, and the unusual reactivation of long-retired nuclear silos. Some believed it was preparation for a classified deterrence test. Others suspected something far more dangerous. One Air Force general reportedly confronted the president directly, a move that ended his career. From that moment, a quiet fear spread through the ranks that the commander-in-chief was waging his own secret war, one that could ignite global destruction without a single declaration. Across the ocean, Soviet intelligence noticed the shift. Spy satellites captured movements of U.S. bombers flying closer to the Arctic. Submarines reported sonar pings from unfamiliar American vessels. To Moscow, it appeared that the United States was preparing for an attack. In response, the Kremlin raised its nuclear alert level to condition red. For 48 tense hours, the fate of humanity hung on the nerves of a few men. One wrong signal, one misinterpreted order could have turned the Cold War into a nuclear inferno. And all of it stemmed from a plan no one outside the Oval Office fully understood. Behind the president's decision was paranoia, not madness, but a fear born from power. He had read intelligence briefings suggesting Soviet infiltration within his administration. Whether those reports were fabricated or genuine remains unclear. But what's certain is that he began to see threats everywhere. Advisors were dismissed, military chiefs replaced, and even the CIA director was sidelined. He relied instead on a small circle of private contractors and former intelligence officers, men who owed their allegiance not to the Constitution, but to him. It was no longer about national defense. It was about control. The breaking point came when Soviet reconnaissance aircraft breached Alaskan airspace during a routine patrol. The president saw it as an act of provocation. Without consulting the Pentagon, he gave the order for American fighters to engage. Luckily, senior commanders delayed the order long enough for communication with Moscow to clarify the misunderstanding. The Soviets claimed it was a navigational error. Had that engagement occurred, it would have been perceived as an act of war, the spark that could have ignited a nuclear chain reaction across continents. History remembers many close calls, but few as perilous as this one. Years later, when classified documents were finally released, historians pieced together the fragments of this hidden crisis. Operation Silent Dawn was real. The president had indeed bypassed traditional chains of command and nearly triggered World War III. But what shocked scholars most wasn't the plan itself. It was the silence that followed. No one was ever held accountable. The public never knew. The records were buried beneath layers of redaction, the truth smothered by national security rhetoric. And so, one of the darkest chapters in modern history remains a whisper. The day a single man almost ended the world in secret. After the near miss with the Soviet patrol aircraft, the president's inner circle grew smaller. Those who questioned his motives were reassigned, retired, or silenced with strategic promotions. Loyalty, not competence, became the new standard. He insisted that history would vindicate him, that he alone could protect the nation from an invisible enemy. His aides described him as sleepless, pacing the Oval Office at night, surrounded by classified maps and intercepted Soviet transmissions. He scribbled notes in the margins. "They're preparing something. I can feel it." Whether it was intuition or delusion, no one could tell. But his conviction would soon push the world to its most dangerous hour. By 1985, the operation had expanded into a vast web of deception. American surveillance planes flew routine reconnaissance missions dangerously close to Soviet borders. Special communication codes were embedded into training exercises, masking hidden commands meant for elite response units. Even NATO allies were left in the dark. When the British Prime Minister questioned unusual U.S. activity over the North Atlantic, the President's office dismissed it as classified counterintelligence work. In reality, those missions were part of a simulated nuclear readiness test, one so realistic that Soviet satellites mistook it for genuine war preparation. The line between simulation and reality was now almost invisible. Inside the Kremlin, Soviet analysts were alarmed. They believed the Americans were testing nuclear response timing, a possible prelude to a first strike. Soviet generals began preparing their own mirror operation, secretly arming warheads in Eastern Europe. Meanwhile, double agents on both sides fueled paranoia, feeding each government misinformation. What neither side knew was that both were reacting to illusions, reflections of their own fear. The world had entered a feedback loop of deception, where every act of defense was mistaken for aggression. The president's plan to secure America was instead writing the first pages of potential Armageddon. Within Washington, cracks began to form. A handful of senior officials, those who still believed in constitutional oversight, started leaking fragments of information to trusted journalists. One memo described unauthorized nuclear simulations taking place without congressional knowledge. Another hinted that the president had established a shadow chain of command. When a reporter approached the press secretary for comment, he laughed it off as conspiracy theory. Yet the following week, that same reporter vanished from public view. No one ever confirmed what happened to him. Fear wasn't just growing on the global stage, it had infected the heart of democracy itself. In a stunning twist, It was the president's own vice president who first considered invoking the 25th Amendment. Concerned by erratic behavior and secretive decisions, he quietly consulted constitutional scholars and military leaders about a possible removal from office. But the attempt failed before it began. The president's private intelligence team intercepted their communications and labeled it an internal coup plot. Within days, the vice president's access to classified briefings was revoked. He became a figurehead, a powerless witness to the unraveling of an empire. And the president, more paranoid than ever, began preparing for what he called the inevitable strike. That inevitable strike was not an attack he planned to launch, but one he believed was coming. Every intercepted Soviet transmission, every movement on the radar, was seen as confirmation. He ordered a massive military alert, codenamed Operation Iron Shield. Submarines were moved into launch-ready positions. Nuclear bombers remained in the air for continuous rotations. Intelligence officers begged him to stand down, arguing there was no credible threat. But he refused. "If we wait for proof," he told his cabinet, "it'll already be too late." For nearly a week, American forces operated at DEFCON 2, one step away from nuclear war. The world remained oblivious. News networks reported vague statements about routine defense readiness, while government spokesmen reassured the public that diplomacy with Moscow was strong. But deep underground, in command centers from Colorado to Alaska, soldiers were sleeping beside launch consoles, awaiting the order that might never come. Soviet intelligence, detecting the elevated American status, raised their own alert levels. Nuclear missiles were fueled and aimed. The silence of diplomacy hid the roar of engines, waiting to ignite. It was as if two civilizations were standing on opposite cliffs, blindfolded, waiting for the other to move first. Then came the night that could have rewritten history forever. A Soviet early warning system detected 5 incoming missiles launched from U.S. territory. Panic erupted in Moscow. The protocol demanded immediate retaliation, a counterstrike that would have obliterated every major American city within 30 minutes. But one man, Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov, disobeyed. He suspected a malfunction. His decision not to report the attack saved the world from nuclear catastrophe. Ironically, those phantom missiles were traced back to a computer glitch during a U.S. communication test, part of the president's secret program. Without knowing it, he had almost triggered the very war he feared most. When news of the incident reached the White House, the president's reaction was not remorse, it was fury. He accused his intelligence team of sabotage, convinced they were working with Soviet agents to undermine him. He ordered tighter control over communication systems and replaced top security officials with personal loyalists. The chain of command, once built on checks and balances, was now a fortress of fear and obedience. Some aides began keeping personal diaries, documenting the chaos they witnessed daily, notes that would decades later reveal how one man's distrust of the world nearly destroyed it. Historians now call it the week the world almost burned. For 7 days, every major nuclear power stood seconds away from total destruction, all because of one leader's obsession with secrecy and control. When tensions finally eased, it wasn't through diplomacy, but exhaustion, the realization that one false move could erase humanity. The president emerged publicly as a symbol of stability, his actions hidden from the public eye. The world applauded his strong leadership, never knowing he had nearly led them to extinction. The greatest secret of the 20th century wasn't the operation itself. It was how close we came to the end. After the crisis subsided, the president ordered all traces of Operation Silent Dawn erased. Classified archives were sealed, code names deleted, and key witnesses transferred to diplomatic posts overseas. The official record would show nothing unusual, just standard defense procedures. But deep inside the National Archives, a handful of encrypted files remained, locked under executive privilege. Only a few men knew what truly happened. Among them was General Marcus Hale, the president's former defense advisor. Decades later, in his memoirs, Hale wrote, We came within a heartbeat of ending civilization, and not a single citizen knew it. His words would become the first spark of revelation in one of history's most chilling cover-ups. The aftermath left invisible scars on everyone involved. Pilots who had been on standby for nuclear deployment spoke years later about the trauma of those sleepless nights. The haunting knowledge that their hands had hovered over the button that could erase millions. One pilot confessed, "I was ready to follow orders, but I kept thinking, what if this isn't training? What if this is the end?" The world moved on, unaware that beneath the calm surface of diplomacy, psychological wreckage lingered. These men had seen the edge of Armageddon and stepped back, but the echo of that moment never left them. In Moscow, the Soviet response was equally secretive. The Politburo ordered its military to remain silent about the near strike, fearing public panic and political instability. Soviet analysts later confirmed that they believed the Americans were testing them, gauging how fast they could respond to a sudden nuclear threat. Ironically, the Soviets also began developing their own covert defense initiative, mirroring Operation Silent Dawn almost perfectly. The president's paranoia had infected his enemies. Instead of peace, the near disaster birthed a new cycle of silent escalation, a Cold War beneath the Cold War, hidden from historians until the fall of the Iron Curtain. As the president entered his second term, the weight of secrecy began to crush him. Those closest to him noticed the change, darker moods, sudden outbursts, and growing distrust of even his family. He reportedly demanded that the White House residence be swept for foreign listening devices every night. His wife, once the calming influence in his life, moved to their private estate, citing health reasons. The leader who had once commanded a nation now found himself alone, imprisoned by the walls of his own fear. But still, he justified it all under one belief. History would thank him for saving the world. But history wasn't kind. By the late 1980s, whistleblowers began coming forward. A former communications officer leaked evidence of unauthorized nuclear simulations. Journalists obtained fragments of redacted memos, referencing presidential-level operations outside standard command. Congressional investigators opened a quiet probe, though much of it was conducted behind closed doors. The president, by then nearing the end of his tenure, denied everything. He called it an elaborate smear campaign by foreign sympathizers. Yet for every denial, new evidence emerged, pieces of a puzzle painting a far darker picture than anyone had imagined. The turning point came when declassified documents revealed a chilling truth. During the height of the crisis, the president had personally authorized a readiness alert that would have launched missiles if communications were lost for more than 5 minutes. It was known internally as the dead man's switch. Had a solar flare or cyber glitch disrupted systems, nuclear war would have begun automatically, without human confirmation. Historians later called it the single most dangerous protocol ever created. What was meant to ensure survival had almost guaranteed destruction. Even his closest advisors were stunned that such a command had existed. Public outrage followed. Senate hearings were demanded, but most evidence remained classified under national security exceptions. The few testimonies that reached the public hinted at chaos, but not the full picture. In an unexpected twist, the president's approval ratings rose. Many Americans saw him as a strong leader who had protected the nation from nuclear threats. They didn't realize he was the threat. History had turned irony into applause. And so, the story faded into the background. A forgotten scandal buried beneath patriotic speeches and televised handshakes with foreign leaders. Behind the scenes, though, the intelligence community vowed never to let such power concentrate again. A secret interagency directive was signed after his presidency, ensuring that no single individual could authorize nuclear readiness without multi-level verification. It was quietly referred to as the Hale Doctrine, named after the general who had first sounded the alarm. Few outside military intelligence ever heard of it, but its creation was the silent acknowledgement of how close the world had come to destruction, and how fragile human decision-making truly was when driven by fear. Years later, when a former president passed away, Official obituaries hailed him as a visionary leader who preserved global stability. The funeral was attended by world leaders, military veterans, and former rivals. The flags flew at half-mast, yet in quiet corners of intelligence circles, his name evoked unease, not reverence. Some called him the man who almost ended history. Others believed he had done what was necessary in uncertain times. But none could deny the truth, that the world had unknowingly walked through the valley of extinction, guided by one man's hidden hand. In the decades that followed, historians continued to uncover fragments, erased logs, coded transmissions, and oral testimonies that confirmed what once seemed conspiracy. The narrative that emerged was one of power unrestrained, secrecy justified by fear, and a presidency that flirted with apocalypse. Today, few Americans know how close they came to never waking up. The legacy of that moment lives on in the silence of nuclear bunkers, the encrypted commands that still wait in the shadows. The story of the president who almost started World War III isn't just history. It's a warning of what happens when one man's paranoia becomes a nation's fate. By the early 1990s, enough time had passed for insiders to start speaking more freely. A retired intelligence analyst from the NSA anonymously revealed that certain unexplained global alert patterns during the president's administration were not drills at all, but fragments of Operation Silent Dawn. His testimony described encrypted satellite uplinks, ghost frequencies, and emergency protocols that bypass standard command centers. It was as if a second government existed within the government, he said. His claims were dismissed by officials at first, but when his documents matched with declassified radar logs, historians realized he was telling the truth. The secret operation had been real, and it had reached deeper than anyone imagined. Journalists soon began tracing the hidden network that carried out the president's commands. What they found was chilling. A private communication line running from the White House basement to a covert military node in Nevada, established without congressional funding. The line was encrypted with experimental technology, allegedly provided by a defense contractor whose CEO was a personal friend of the president. Billions in unaccounted federal dollars were funneled into national security research, shielding the project from audits. The operation had not only endangered the world, it had also corrupted the foundations of democratic oversight, proving how fear could quietly finance tyranny. As more evidence surfaced, public curiosity turned into disbelief. How could something so monumental remain hidden for so long? The answer lay in the culture of Cold War secrecy. Fear of espionage had created a perfect environment for shadow politics. Every department believed another was watching. Every officer trusted that someone else was in control. That diffusion of responsibility allowed the president to act unchecked. It wasn't that no one knew. It was that no one believed what they knew could possibly be true. The idea that one man could almost start World War III in secret seemed unthinkable until the documents proved otherwise. In 1997, a team of historians gained temporary access to the restricted archives under the Freedom of Information Act. What they discovered shocked them. Among the documents were handwritten directives, personal memos, and internal communications marked "Eyes Only," executive clearance. One memo read, "Maintain operational silence. Proceed as if communications are compromised. Trust only inner circle." Another showed a chilling calculation, a projected acceptable casualty range for a limited nuclear exchange. These weren't the writings of a cautious leader. They were the plans of a man preparing for war, one who believed survival justified any cost. The release of these documents caused a brief uproar in academic and political circles, but the public remained largely indifferent. The 1990s were a decade of optimism, economic boom, and technological revolution. The idea that their beloved leader might have nearly doomed the planet didn't fit the national narrative. Media outlets ran short segments, but the story quickly faded beneath celebrity scandals and election coverage. It was as if society itself wanted to forget, as if the truth was too heavy to carry. And so, history's most dangerous secret once again slipped quietly into the shadows. Inside intelligence circles, however, the revelations sparked a quiet reckoning. Training manuals for future commanders began to include case studies of unauthorized escalation scenarios. Psychological evaluations for high-ranking officials became more stringent. A new question appeared on every nuclear officer's screening form. Would you question an illegal or irrational order? It was a subtle but monumental change, one born from the ghost of a near apocalypse. The lessons learned from the president's hidden war reshaped how power was monitored. Yet, despite all safeguards, one haunting thought persisted. What if next time, someone smarter hit it better? The president's private journals, discovered after his death, added another disturbing layer to the story. In them, he justified his actions as divine duty. "If I fail," he wrote, "the world falls to chaos. I'm a last line of order." Those words revealed a dangerous psychology. A man who saw himself not as a servant of democracy, but as its guardian god. He truly believed that only he could prevent the end of civilization. That belief, historians argue, was the catalyst for his descent into secrecy. It wasn't greed or power alone that drove him. It was conviction, the most perilous form of madness. When excerpts from a journal were published, the public response was divided. Some hailed him as a misunderstood visionary who had borne the burden of saving humanity in silence. Others saw him as a tyrant whose ego nearly ended the world. Television debates raged for weeks, comparing him to historical figures like Caesar, Napoleon, and even Hitler. But the truth was more complex. He was not a monster. He was human, and that humanity made his actions more terrifying. Because if one man could believe so strongly in his righteousness, how many others throughout history have done the same, with equally devastating consequences? In the years that followed, filmmakers, authors, and historians transformed his story into documentaries and political thrillers. Yet, each retelling still left a lingering sense of mystery. Some claimed there were still unreleased tapes, voice recordings from the Situation Room during the 13-minute false alarm. Others believed a second operation, codenamed Echo Dawn, was planned but never activated. The truth remains buried beneath layers of national secrecy. Even today, portions of the archive remain classified, sealed under executive order until 2050. Whatever lies within may change everything we think we know about that haunting chapter in history. Ultimately, the story of the president who almost started World War III in secret isn't just about one man. It's about the system that allowed him to exist. It's about how fear can blur morality, how patriotism can become paranoia, and how democracy can crumble quietly beneath the weight of national security. History often remembers wars for their battles, heroes, and victories. But this war, the one that never happened, may be the most important of all, because it reminds us that sometimes the greatest threat to humanity doesn't come from our enemies, but from the decisions made in silence by those sworn to protect us. The more historians uncovered, the more they realized how fragile global peace had truly been. Documents revealed that during the peak of Operation Silent Dawn, communication between U.S. and Soviet satellites had been intermittently jammed, deliberately. The goal was to simulate signal confusion and test both nations' response times. But a single miscalculation during that test nearly caused Moscow to believe a cyber attack was underway. In a terrifying twist, the Soviets activated their automated response system, Perimeter, known in the West as the Dead Hand. Had the system fully triggered, nuclear missiles would have launched automatically, even if Soviet leadership had been wiped out. The president's secret experiment had unknowingly poked the apocalypse. The revelation stunned intelligence experts. That was the closest humanity has ever come to extinction without realizing it, said Dr. Evelyn Cross, a Cold War historian who led the 2004 Senate review on nuclear command ethics. The danger wasn't in the weapons. It was in the arrogance of one man who believed he could control chaos. Her report urged Congress to make Nuclear Launch Authority a collective decision, not a solitary one. But despite her warnings, the system largely remained unchanged. Even today, one person still holds the power to decide the fate of billions with a single command. The lesson, it seems, was heard, but never fully learned. Behind the president's hidden motives was a haunting personal story. Declassified medical reports later revealed that he suffered from chronic insomnia and severe anxiety throughout his presidency. Advisors noted he often worked through the night, sustained by black coffee and sedatives. Some nights, he spoke of vivid dreams, visions of burning cities, screaming children, and silent skies filled with ash. Whether those dreams were guilt or prophecy, no one could say. But many psychologists now believe his deteriorating mental state may have played a key role in his paranoia. History is often shaped by ideology, but sometimes it's shaped by untreated fear. The president's mental decline was visible to those closest to him, though few dared to speak. His personal physician, Dr. Alan Mercer, kept detailed notes, later released posthumously. He believed fate had chosen him, Mercer wrote. He spoke of destiny, of divine intervention. He feared that if he let down his guard for even one day, the world would fall apart. When Mercer suggested therapy or rest, the president reportedly replied, "I can't sleep while the world burns." Those words, once dismissed as poetic, now echo with tragic irony. For in trying to save the world from destruction, he came closer to destroying it than anyone before him. Years later, retired military officials reflected on the strange culture that surrounded the president. He had created an environment where questioning his judgment was seen as disloyalty. Generals who disagreed were replaced with younger officers more eager to please. "It wasn't just fear," said General Robert Lane, one of the few survivors of the inner circle. "It was worship. He was treated like a messiah." Lane later admitted that even he, a seasoned soldier, had been swept up in the illusion. "We thought we were part of something righteous, until we realized righteousness doesn't need to hide in the dark." As time passed, the world's attention shifted elsewhere. New wars, new presidents, new enemies replaced the old fears. Yet, within academic circles, the shadow of Operation Silent Dawn remained an obsession. Each new document revealed deeper layers of deceit. One discovery in 2010 stunned researchers: a hidden contingency called Protocol Ember, designed to ensure that even if the president were incapacitated, his secret command network could still function autonomously. It meant the nuclear shadow he built could have outlived him. For decades, the world may have unknowingly carried a sleeping weapon, waiting for a signal that would never come. Protocol Ember's existence raised terrifying questions. Who was meant to control it after the president? Did it deactivate when he left office? Or was it still operational somewhere, buried beneath modern systems? Cybersecurity experts tried tracing its digital remnants, but hit classified firewalls. One analyst described it best: "It's like a ghost circuit, something you can feel but never see." To this day, no public record confirms its full deactivation. If it still exists, it serves as a silent reminder that human ambition can leave behind ticking relics, programs without masters, coded to protect a world that has long since moved on. In the early 2010s, a former CIA cryptographer known only as Orion leaked fragments of data he claimed were tied to Operation Silent Dawn. The documents contained partial command strings, launch verification codes, and intercepted transmissions between White House advisors. One phrase appeared repeatedly: "Sunrise contingency, no retreat." Analysts speculated it referred to a final stage order, the irreversible trigger if all diplomatic options failed. Though the authenticity of Orion's leak remains debated, the precision of the data left experts unsettled. If genuine, it meant the president had indeed built a system designed for total war, one that could not be stopped once started. Orion's revelations reignited public interest in the long-buried story. Documentaries flooded streaming platforms, each promising to expose the truth behind the president's secret war. Yet, Even with all the dramatization, one question always lingered. Why had he done it? Some said it was fear of Soviet aggression. Others believed it was a quest for legacy, a desire to be remembered as the man who preserved peace through dominance. But a few, like historian Dr. Cross, offered a darker theory. He wasn't preparing for the end of the world. He was preparing to survive it. Perhaps, deep down, he believed Armageddon was inevitable, and he just wanted to be in control when it came. Today, decades later, the legacy of that secret crisis remains a ghost in modern politics. Presidents still carry nuclear codes. Generals still run simulations. And somewhere, in the secure vaults of the Pentagon, red folders labeled Silent Dawn Archive gather dust. Most of their contents remain sealed, perhaps forever. But the story lives on, whispered among intelligence officers and historians alike. The tale of one man's obsession, one nation's blindness, and 1 week in human history when existence itself balanced on a trembling wire. The president believed he was saving the world. In truth, he had taught us just how easily it could end. By early 1963, the president's inner circle was fracturing. The Secretary of State threatened resignation over the administration's reckless experiments with global stability. Yet, the president remained convinced that showing weakness would embolden rival powers. He viewed nuclear diplomacy as a chessboard. One wrong move could destroy his credibility. Advisors pleaded with him to release details of the secret missile program to Congress, but he refused. "History will vindicate me," he said during one tense meeting. Behind his resolve lay fear, not of war, but of appearing indecisive. He had built his image as a savior of democracy, and now that same image trapped him in a cycle of deception and brinkmanship. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union was watching closely. Intelligence analysts in Moscow intercepted fragmented radio chatter that hinted at missile tests in the Pacific. Their conclusions were chilling. The United States might be preparing a preemptive strike. Soviet submarines began shadowing U.S. naval movements, and their long-range bombers went on high alert. One misunderstanding could have unleashed a full-scale nuclear response. Ironically, both nations believed they were acting defensively. In secret bunkers across Europe, generals reviewed attack plans that hadn't been opened since the Cuban Missile Crisis. The world was unknowingly one false radar, reading away from annihilation. The president's most trusted aide, a man known for his loyalty, began keeping a private journal detailing each decision. He recorded how the president dismissed warnings, how meetings turned into shouting matches, and how secrecy consumed the administration. In one entry, he wrote, "He believes destiny chose him to reshape the world order, even if it burns first." This aide would later leak fragments of these notes to a reporter, igniting one of the greatest scandals of the Cold War. But at that time, no one dared confront the president directly. Fear of being labeled unpatriotic silenced many who saw disaster looming. Publicly, the president gave rousing speeches about peace and progress. Privately, he approved contingency plans for tactical strikes in Southeast Asia and the Arctic. The contradiction was staggering. A man who preached global unity was secretly laying the groundwork for destruction. In one memo, he wrote, "A small, decisive strike now could prevent a larger war later." But history has shown that wars rarely stay small. His justification was a classic case of moral inversion, believing that violence could guarantee peace. The irony was not lost on his generals, many of whom had fought in World War II and knew its horrors firsthand. The CIA director, who had long supported covert interventions, began to grow uneasy. The agency had planted agents deep inside rival governments, feeding the president exaggerated reports of imminent threats. When the director realized the intelligence had been manipulated to justify escalation, it was too late. The machine of secrecy was already in motion. Documents were classified, operatives silenced, and missions rebranded as defensive maneuvers. To question the operation was to question the very idea of American security. The director confided to a colleague, "We're creating ghosts, enemies that don't exist, just to keep our fear alive." Then came the incident that nearly lit the fuse. A U.S. reconnaissance plane strayed off course and entered restricted airspace near a rival power's naval base. Anti-aircraft guns locked on, and within seconds, both sides were preparing for retaliation. The president was awakened in the middle of the night. "Sir, they're ready to fire," a general reported. The president hesitated, torn between pride and survival. For 12 agonizing minutes, he weighed whether to authorize a counterstrike. Eventually, a last-minute radio contact saved the world. The pilot managed to turn back before disaster struck. But the near miss haunted everyone who knew the truth. The press eventually caught whispers of a classified confrontation at sea. Reporters speculated about espionage, military drills, and foreign aggression. But no one guessed how close the planet had come to destruction. The president's staff scrambled to control the narrative, releasing vague statements about routine training operations. Behind the scenes, aides destroyed flight logs, erased radio transmissions, and redacted internal memos. The cover-up was massive, but not perfect. One surviving document, a declassified map with handwritten coordinates, would later expose the entire deception and rewrite Cold War history. Tensions within the administration reached their breaking point. The vice president, long sidelined in decision-making, demanded to know the full scope of the secret operations. When denied access, he began quietly aligning with congressional leaders who suspected foul play. "This isn't leadership," he reportedly said. "It's gambling with humanity." His words were prophetic. For the first time, impeachment was whispered in private rooms, not for corruption, but for nearly triggering a global war. The president, however, remained unmoved. He saw himself not as reckless, but as the only man brave enough to act when others feared to. By the summer of 1963, the secret operations had reached their zenith. Dozens of hidden missile silos were constructed under false identities, disguised as weather stations and agricultural facilities. Engineers were ordered to work without records or communication with the outside world. Some never returned home. When one journalist investigating a construction site disappeared, rumors of government assassinations began circulating. Fear spread like wildfire, not just among civilians, but within the administration itself. The president's dream of global control had turned into a paranoid empire, one fueled by secrecy, fear, and delusion. The breaking point came when a high-ranking general refused to carry out an illegal order. The president had requested a demonstration strike, a non-lethal detonation meant to intimidate rival nations. The general refused, citing moral and constitutional grounds. "My loyalty is to the Constitution, not a single man," he said. The confrontation ended with the general's forced resignation, but the damage was done. Word leaked through military channels, and soon the Pentagon was divided. Some officers still supported the president, believing he acted to protect the nation. Others saw him as a tyrant who had come dangerously close to ending civilization. After the general's resignation, the military's confidence in the president plummeted. Several officers began holding secret meetings to discuss constitutional options for removing him from command. Some even drafted letters of resignation, fearing they might be ordered to commit war crimes. Yet no one wanted to ignite a political crisis during a fragile Cold War. Behind closed doors, whispers of a potential coup circulated through Washington, a chilling sign of how far trust had eroded. The nation's highest offices were now engulfed in quiet rebellion, and one misstep could have brought democracy itself to the brink of collapse. Meanwhile, the president's mental state grew increasingly erratic. His once eloquent speeches turned into unpredictable rants about destiny, betrayal, and divine purpose. Late-night recordings captured him pacing the Oval Office, muttering about enemies within his own government. "They think I'm the threat," he said in one recording, "but they don't see the storm that's coming." His aides exchanged anxious glances, realizing the man holding the nuclear codes was no longer stable. Psychologists were discreetly consulted under the guise of policy advisors. Their conclusion was grim: paranoia, stress-induced delusion, and dangerous overconfidence. but none dared make it official. Foreign intelligence agencies noticed the change too. A European diplomat described his meeting with the president as chillingly detached. The leader who once championed democracy now spoke like a general planning conquest. Rumors spread through embassies that the United States might be planning a massive preemptive strike. Allied nations grew nervous, unsure whether to support or restrain him. The British Prime Minister reportedly called Washington in private, urging restraint. "If you continue this path," he warned, "you'll start a war no one can end." But the president dismissed the warning as cowardice, deepening his isolation from the world. In the following weeks, new intelligence reports reached the president's desk, claims of enemy weapons being stockpiled near an Allied border. The evidence was inconclusive, but the president seized on it as justification for escalation. He ordered naval fleets to the region under the code name Operation Iron Wave. The public was told it was a humanitarian mission, but insiders knew it was a show of force. Generals privately called it the march toward Armageddon. One colonel described the atmosphere as eerily calm, like standing on a cliff's edge and pretending not to see the drop. The operation triggered global panic. Foreign leaders mobilized their forces, interpreting the sudden American deployment as a threat. Stock markets crashed, and ordinary citizens began preparing for nuclear fallout. The world stood still, glued to radios and televisions, waiting for the first missile to fly. Yet in the White House, the president smiled. "Fear," he said to his aide, "is the greatest weapon of all." To him, chaos was leverage, a means to force rival nations into submission without firing a shot. But history would later show that fear is uncontrollable, and once unleashed, it spares no one. As Operation Iron Wave intensified, one brave journalist began piecing the puzzle together. Her name was Evelyn Ross, a relentless investigative reporter known for exposing political cover-ups. Through leaked documents and anonymous sources, she discovered fragments of the secret plans, hidden missile deployments, doctor intelligence, and internal power struggles. Her first article, "The Shadow War in the West Wing," caused an uproar. The administration denied everything, calling it fiction, but the truth was out, and now the world began to question the president's motives. Evelyn's reporting would soon make her a target of the very government she sought to expose. Evelyn received threats within days. Unmarked cars followed her through Washington streets, and her phone was tapped. Yet, she pressed on, determined to uncover the full extent of the deception. She met secretly with military insiders who confirmed that the president had authorized covert preparations for nuclear launch drills. "We came within minutes of starting a war," one officer confessed, "and no one outside this building even knew." Evelyn realized she was sitting on the biggest story of the century, one that could topple a presidency, but revealing it could also make her disappear forever. When Evelyn finally published her second report, The President's Secret War, the world reacted with fury. Protesters filled the streets, demanding transparency. Congress launched an emergency investigation, and foreign governments demanded explanations. The White House went into crisis mode, blaming fabricated leaks by foreign agents. Yet, deep down, even the president's closest allies knew the reports were true. In a desperate attempt to control the damage, the administration began destroying evidence. Files were shredded, tapes erased, and witnesses silenced under national security directives. The cover-up, once meant to protect the nation, had now become its greatest threat. The congressional hearings were explosive. Generals testified under oath, revealing how the president had bypassed chain of command, concealed nuclear deployments, and planned psychological operations against foreign states. The revelations shocked the nation. For the first time, Americans saw how close they had come to World War III, not from foreign aggression, but from within their own government. The hearings were broadcast live, drawing millions of viewers. One senator declared, "We were a heartbeat away from history's end, and we never even knew it." The world watched in disbelief as democracy teetered on the edge. Faced with mounting evidence and public outrage, The president refused to resign. Instead, he took to national television, delivering one of the most infamous speeches in U.S. history. "I have done what I must to protect this nation," he declared, eyes burning with conviction. "History will not judge me by the fears of the weak, but by the strength of my resolve." Some cheered his defiance, calling him a patriot. Others saw a madman unwilling to face the truth. That night, protests turned violent outside the White House. America was now divided, not between parties, but between sanity and delusion. The chaos outside the White House grew unbearable. Crowds chanted, "Resign now," while riot police clashed with angry protesters. Tear gas filled the air as flames lit up Pennsylvania Avenue. Inside, the president watched from his window, unmoved. "They don't understand," he whispered. "I saved them." His aides begged him to step down, warning that the military might intervene if he didn't. But he refused. In his mind, surrendering meant betraying his mission. "History is written by those who endure," he told his secretary. That night, the Secret Service began contingency planning, not for his safety, but for the nation's survival. The vice president, seeing the country on the verge of collapse, convened an emergency meeting with congressional leaders and senior generals. They debated invoking the 25th Amendment, declaring the president unfit for office. It was a dangerous move, one that could ignite civil unrest or even a military standoff. "We're walking a razor's edge," a senator said. "One wrong step, and we lose the republic." But the alternative was unthinkable, leaving the nuclear codes in the hands of a man who believed the world was conspiring against him. After hours of deliberation, the decision was made. Quietly, preparations began for a constitutional transfer of power. Unaware of the plan, the president secluded himself in the Situation Room. He demanded constant updates on true positions and naval movements. When he learned of foreign nations forming a coalition to demand his resignation, he exploded in rage. "They think they can dictate terms to me," he shouted. "I'll remind them who controls the sky." His generals hesitated, unsure whether to follow his orders. One whispered to another, "If he gives the launch command, do we obey?" For the first time in American history, loyalty to the commander-in-chief and loyalty to humanity had become two different things. The following morning, the vice president made his move. Surrounded by advisors and guarded by military police, he entered the Oval Office with a letter from Congress and the cabinet. "Mr. President," he said calmly, "you are hereby relieved of your duties under Section 4 of the 25th Amendment." The room froze. The president's eyes widened, disbelief flooding his face. "You're staging a coup," he whispered. The vice president shook his head. "No, sir. We're saving the world." What followed was the tensest standoff in modern political history, a moment where the fate of humanity hung on the fragile thread of reason. For several minutes, no one moved. Secret Service agents exchanged nervous glances, unsure who to protect. Then, the president slowly stood, his voice trembling with fury. "You think you can stop destiny?" he growled. "History will curse your names." He turned toward the nuclear briefcase on his desk, but an agent swiftly stepped between them. "Sir, please don't," the agent said, voice breaking. The silence that followed felt eternal. Finally, the president slumped into his chair, defeated. "You'll regret this," he muttered. The briefcase was removed, and the world, for now, was safe from destruction. News of the president's removal spread like wildfire. Television stations interrupted broadcasts with the announcement. The president has been declared unfit to serve. Crowds erupted, some in celebration, others in outrage. Military units were deployed to prevent potential uprisings. The vice president addressed the nation that evening, assuring citizens that the Constitution has prevailed. He promised transparency and peace, but the scars were already deep. Allies cautiously welcomed the transition, while rival nations quietly rejoiced. The crisis had ended, but the world now understood just how fragile civilization truly was, how close humanity had come to its final breath. The former president was confined to a private medical facility, officially for evaluation and rest. Behind the sanitized language, however, lay a reality of surveillance and silence. Visitors were restricted, and his correspondence monitored. Occasionally, he would rant about betrayal and destiny, insisting that history would one day vindicate him. "They feared my strength," he told one nurse. "They couldn't see the future I was trying to build." His words were chilling, not for their madness, but for their sincerity. Even stripped of power, he still believed he was chosen to reshape the world, no matter the cost. In the months that followed, the government declassified partial records of the crisis. The public learned about secret missile deployments, falsified intelligence, and unauthorized military operations. Historians dubbed it the 12 Days of Near Doom. Newspapers published detailed timelines of how the president's obsession with control nearly triggered World War III. The revelations shocked the global community. Citizens demanded stricter checks on executive power, and Congress passed new oversight laws. But some questions remained unanswered, including the full extent of the president's secret orders and whether remnants of his operations still existed somewhere in the shadows. Evelyn Ross, the journalist who exposed the scandal, became a household name. Her work earned her international awards, but it also placed her under constant threat. Years later, she revealed that mysterious figures still followed her, remnants of the intelligence network the president once controlled. "Truth," she said in an interview, "is the most dangerous weapon of all." Her reporting inspired a new generation of investigative journalists, proving that even in an age of fear, courage could still change history. Yet Evelyn often admitted that victory came at a price. "I saved the truth," she once said, "but it cost me peace." Decades later, historians would still debate the legacy of the president who almost started World War III in secret. Some argued he was a visionary driven mad by pressure. Others saw him as a tyrant disguised as a patriot. His story became a warning, a reminder that the line between heroism and hubris is perilously thin. In museums and documentaries, his era was portrayed not just as a political crisis, but as a moral reckoning. For in the end, the greatest threat humanity faced wasn't the bomb or the enemy abroad. It was the arrogance of one man's unchecked power. Years after the crisis, new evidence emerged suggesting that the president had not acted entirely alone. Secret memos declassified under the Freedom of Information Act revealed a shadow group within the government, a network of advisors, defense contractors, and intelligence officers who believed a controlled war could restore American dominance. They called themselves the Phoenix Circle. Their plan was to stage limited global conflict to cripple rivals economically. The president, already paranoid and power-driven, became their perfect instrument. Historians later concluded that while he bore the blame, he was also a puppet of forces far older and darker than the office he held. The Phoenix Circle's influence extended deep into the military-industrial complex. Major corporations profited from a secret buildup of weapons and defense systems during the president's tenure. When the plan collapsed, they quietly erased their tracks, deleting records, dissolving shell companies, and bribing officials. The investigation committee found traces of hidden contracts worth billions of dollars, funneled through offshore accounts. The scandal, when exposed, reshaped the relationship between government and industry forever. Yet, some claim the circle never truly disappeared, that its members simply adapted, waiting for another leader desperate enough to finish what had once been started. As time passed, the nation entered a period of collective amnesia. Schools avoided discussing the near catastrophe. Official history books reduced it to a temporary political crisis. Survivors of the administration's chaos grew old and silent. But in secret archives, documents remained sealed, marked classified, eyes only. Those who stumbled upon them whispered of detailed maps, code names, and untested weapons hidden in remote locations. Some even believed remnants of the president's secret defense projects still operated autonomously, governed by obsolete protocols that could activate without human command. It was as if the ghost of his paranoia still haunted the world's most powerful nation. Meanwhile, The vice president who saved the world from nuclear war carried his own burden. Though hailed as a hero, he suffered from guilt and nightmares. He often wondered whether removing the president had truly saved the nation or simply delayed the inevitable. "Power doesn't vanish," he once told a confidant. "It only changes hands." In private letters discovered after his death, he admitted to fearing that some within the government were rebuilding the same systems of secrecy that almost destroyed humanity. His last note read, "If history repeats itself, it won't be an accident, it'll be design." Outside government walls, society struggled to regain trust. The crisis had shattered faith in leadership and exposed the fragility of democracy. Protests erupted, demanding term limits, public accountability, and the dismantling of secret agencies. For a brief moment, unity surged, a collective vow never to repeat the mistakes of that dark era. But as years turned into decades, complacency returned. New politicians rose, promising safety in exchange for secrecy. The old cycle began again, proving that humanity rarely learns from its narrow escapes. The lesson of near annihilation faded into the background noise of progress. Evelyn Ross, the journalist who once stood alone against the system, published a book titled The Man Who Almost Ended the World. It became a bestseller, sparking debates across universities and parliaments. In her final chapter, she wrote, "He didn't need to push the button to destroy us. He only needed to make us believe he could." The line became immortal, quoted in speeches and memorials. Evelyn retired from public life soon after, moving to a quiet coastal town. But even there, she claimed to receive unmarked envelopes with old documents, as if someone wanted her to keep digging. In one of those envelopes, she found a photograph. The president shaking hands with a foreign diplomat known for orchestrating global coups. On the back was a handwritten message, "The circle lives." Evelyn's curiosity reignited. She reached out to former intelligence officers who hinted at ongoing secret alliances, global surveillance networks, and a resurgence of covert influence shaping modern politics. The more she uncovered, the clearer it became that the events of the past were not isolated. They were part of a continuous pattern, one that transcended nations and administrations. History, she realized, isn't written, it's engineered. Evelyn's investigation led her to Europe, where she interviewed a retired general who once collaborated with American intelligence. He confessed that during the president's time, secret bunkers were constructed across several continents, stocked with nuclear materials for emergencies. None of them had ever been decommissioned. "They're still out there," he said, waiting for a signal that may never come. His eyes carried the weight of a man haunted by his own obedience. Evelyn's recordings of that interview would later vanish from her archives, fueling rumors that her findings had been suppressed by powerful interests determined to bury the truth. By the time Evelyn released her final exposé, titled Echoes of the Phoenix, she was a legend and a target. The book revealed new details about how the near war had permanently changed global intelligence operations. Governments began auditing their nuclear safeguards, terrified of hidden systems still capable of automatic launch. But days after the book's release, Evelyn disappeared. Her car was found abandoned on a bridge outside New York, her notes missing. Authorities ruled it an accident. Those who knew her best disagreed. She found something she wasn't supposed to, one colleague said, and history has a way of protecting its secrets. Today, the story of the president who almost started World War III in secret remains both a warning and a mystery. Scholars still debate how much of the truth has been told and how much remains locked away. Declassified files continue to surface, each one hinting that the official narrative is incomplete. What truly happened in those shadowed years? Was the world saved by courage or by luck? And if similar forces still operate unseen, manipulating power behind closed doors, how close are we now to repeating the same mistake? History, it seems, never ends. It only waits for its next chapter. In the decades that followed, the former president became a mythic figure, both reviled and revered. Some extremists hailed him as a visionary who defied the global order, while others saw him as the embodiment of humanity's arrogance. Conspiracy groups formed, claiming he'd been framed by secret elites or silenced for uncovering the truth about global power structures. His name, once synonymous with leadership, now symbolized the terrifying fragility of reason under pressure. Even schools avoided teaching his story in full, as if fearing that speaking his name might awaken the same madness that nearly consumed the world. Historians who examined the crisis discovered something even more unsettling. Several nuclear systems had gone offline for unexplained reasons during the height of the standoff. Engineers reported computer malfunctions, radar anomalies, and communication failures that could not be replicated later. Some called it coincidence, others divine intervention. A few scientists whispered of interference, as if something beyond human control prevented the catastrophe. It was as though the world itself refused to die, one physicist later wrote. Whether through chance, faith, or fate, humanity survived by the narrowest of margins, and no one could fully explain why. Years later, a newly declassified document from an obscure intelligence agency revealed a haunting message sent days before the president's removal. It simply read, "Stand down. Eyes are watching." The message had no known sender or digital signature. Its encryption method didn't match any known at the time. Analysts speculated endlessly. Was it a warning from within the government? A foreign transmission? Or something else entirely? The mystery deepened the legend, turning the event into a modern myth. A story that blurred the line between history and the inexplicable. Perhaps, some said, the world was protected by unseen hands. In academic circles, the World War III that never happened became a case study in political psychology. Scholars dissected every recorded decision, memo, and speech, trying to understand how rational men could edge so close to global suicide. They concluded that fear, not ideology, was the real architect of the crisis. Fear of weakness, fear of irrelevance, fear of losing control. The president's downfall, they said, wasn't born from hatred but from insecurity disguised as strength. It was a timeless reminder that empires often collapse not from outside attack, but from the weight of their own delusions. Generations later, filmmakers turned the story into blockbusters, authors into thrillers, and musicians into protest ballads. But no retelling could capture the terror of those hidden nights, when the world's fate balanced on a handful of trembling fingers. Survivors who lived through the crisis often spoke with tears in their eyes. "You don't know silence until you've heard the world waiting to end," one said. Their testimonies became time capsules of fear, preserved for future generations that might one day face the same test. Would they choose restraint, or would they repeat the sins of the past? Meanwhile, deep within an unmarked government vault, one file remained permanently classified, Project Halcyon. Rumors described it as the president's final contingency, an automated system designed to trigger retaliation if America ever faced a coordinated global attack. Engineers claimed the project was dismantled, yet satellite logs showed faint activity matching its code decades later. Whether it was a glitch, a hoax, or a remnant of forgotten programming, no one could say. But the idea that a sleeping weapon still lurked in the shadows terrified historians. Some began to wonder, had the president truly been stopped or merely paused? As artificial intelligence and autonomous weapons rose in the 21st century, parallels to the old crisis resurfaced. Experts warned that the same logic, secrecy, control, and fear was returning under new forms. Technology changes, one scholar said, but human ego doesn't. The phrase became prophetic. Leaked reports suggested that world powers were once again experimenting with automatic retaliation systems, eerily similar to the ones conceived decades earlier. The lessons of history, it seemed, were not forgotten, just ignored. Humanity was advancing toward the same precipice, this time without realizing it. In an ironic twist, the former president's personal diary was found years after his death, hidden in a sealed vault beneath a private estate. Inside were hundreds of pages of handwritten reflections, not of war, but of guilt. He wrote about dreams of fire, of cities burning under red skies, and of a voice that warned him to stop. I was chosen, one entry read, but I never knew by whom. The diary humanized him, not as a monster, but as a man consumed by paranoia and destiny. It was tragic proof that power doesn't just corrupt, it isolates. When the diary was made public, it reignited debate worldwide. Was the president a madman or a prophet who saw something others could not? Some theologians interpreted his writings as evidence of divine conflict, the struggle between human will and higher purpose. Scientists dismissed it as delusion, while philosophers saw it as the ultimate warning about the limits of human control. Yet, one passage lingered in the public imagination. The end is not a bomb, nor a war, but the moment we believe we are too wise to repeat history. His final words were chillingly timeless. And so, the legacy of the president who almost started World War III in secret endures, not as a tale of politics, but as a mirror reflecting humanity's darkest impulses. Every generation rediscovers the same fragile truth, that civilization rests on trust, and one man's fear can end it all. The archives remain, the myths persist, and the questions never fade. How close did we really come to the edge? How many times has history almost ended without our knowing? And most haunting of all, when the next crisis comes, will we recognize it before it's too late?